Go ahead and do a video on making up brake lines. This is a seamless nickel copper brake line, as it says there on the package, 1/4 inch, because this is for the rear brake line. It takes a little bit bigger than the smaller 3/16 ones in the front. Anyway, it's 25-foot roll, and it's here's a couple of tools that I got that I may use. Some of these I will use some of them, probably not all of them. This is a straightener, a tubing straightener. You can just shove your tubing through that. I got another one that's the 3/16 size, but I don't need it over here. This is a combination straightener and bender. You can bend it on this end, the tubing on this end that has these curved things here. You can grip it and bend it somewhat. You can't go too far with it because it's got a kind of a sharp edge there, but it's good for straightening out kinks in short areas. You can just squeeze that on your line. This one here is another one. It's similar. This one doesn't do any straightening, but this one will grip and bend a line in a tight, small area that you cannot get into. Here's another bender that's a little more complicated, but this one can actually go and make U-shaped bends in a line. And if you needed to make a coil like what you have coming off the master cylinder, you would just take a piece of pipe, the closest size to what's going to work for you. You just wrap some of your brake line around that, and then you'd use something like this to do the ends of it to make it where it's going to go into your master cylinder. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and well, let's see, there's another tool here. There's a reamer for cleaning out the inside, the burrs on the inside after you cut it with a little small tubing cutter, after you cut your line with that. So this piece here does not seem to have a burr in it, but a lot of times it will have after you cut it with this. So anyway, let's go ahead and straighten out a piece of this and get ready to do my brake line underneath here. This is the brake line that I'm going to be replacing from this point here to the back. It's going to follow this rail all the way down back there to just above the differential, and I don't know how long it is. It's probably 12 feet long, maybe something like that. So we'll probably use about half of that roll. Anyway, I already sprayed these fittings a while ago on both ends, and mainly I just need to take this nut right here that I'm touching with my thumb. Need to get that one off. Hopefully this one will come off good. It'll come out of this union here, or this piece here. It'll come out of that good. If not, then we may end up having to cut it off. If we can't get this apart, we may have to fix it up here on this end. This piece of line here is in pretty good shape. Seems to be from here all the way up under the hood there. So I'm going to use line wrench. It's what we call it, or a flare nut wrench. The 9/16 one we're going to use on the outside part of it here. It seems to be a little bit sloppy. Hopefully it's tight enough. If not, I may have a 14mm one that fits better. Or I don't think it's going to be the 1/2 inch on that. But that one's not too bad. You can grab that with a vice grip if you have to. It's this one here you want to, well, since we're replacing that line, it doesn't really matter what happens to that. Okay, let me get my smaller wrench on there. It's going to be a 7/16. We'll get that on this end. And I'm going to break those loose. I got them cracked loose. It was a pretty tight squeeze on the two wrenches, but I got them broke loose, and so now I'm just going to work them back and forth like this a few times and then slide my wrench down to grab it again, and work on that some more. And I'll just keep working on it like that and working it out until I get it off of there. One more tool I forgot to show. I've got a small assortment of brake line stoppers. They're spring loaded. They come different sizes, and you squeeze that back and you just hooks on behind the fitting, and then the stopper goes on the end of the line. So there's different, and this one here has a stopper on both sides. This one goes on like your banjo fittings on your brake calipers. I'm going to take this loose and I'm going to put one of those on here. If I didn't have these, after breaking this loose, I would just tighten it back up like it is right now. It's tightened up right now so that it doesn't leak. And then I would just go back and work on the back one. Well, I have to replace the brake line. I have no choice. It's not ruptured and leaking yet, but it's right at that point where it's going to. So, and I'll show you why. It's got several places on it that are like this, that are really in really bad shape. Where this fitting, where it snaps on to here and there, and every place where it snaps on is got a, it's all rotted out like that, and the line's about to break. So have to replace it regardless. Got that brake line off, got this clamp thing on here, but I'm going to take it back off and show you how this is working good. See how much fluid runs out of there? Put this back on there, and then I can okay, it's not sealing right there. We got to turn it a couple of times. And even if it doesn't stop it completely, if it just slows it down a whole lot, gives you time to get the other end of it done without having to worry about this thing running out of fluid on you. You don't want that master cylinder to run out of fluid on you, then you got a real can of worms bleeding it back out. Have to take a small screwdriver and open up all of these things that these are holding this brake line. Just have to pop them open. Different cars are going to have it on there different ways, but of course you got to get them all off of there, get them all open, get the line free so you can are free to move and follow it. I'm here on the back end. There's a couple things I want to point out. One thing, well, I already mentioned that you want to spray that before, you know, for a little while, maybe half hour or so before you're ready to take these off. But one thing you want to make sure you do, make sure you use a flare nut wrench like this for one thing, and another, make darn sure that that wrench is fitting on there all the way down tight. I had to really work this thing to get it on there. There was a lot of crud around there, and it wasn't letting me get a hold of it. And if you screw up and put a bigger wrench on it because of that, you're going to wipe the corners off of that nut, and then you won't get it off of there. So, and then another thing is knock all the loose stuff around above and around this thing. Knock that loose stuff out of there. You don't want that stuff falling in, because this is going to fall right down in my case, right down into this hydraulic line here going to the brakes. And so you want to try to get all that loose stuff out of there. Take an air hose or whatever and get some of that out of there. Put a rag around it, whatever you think is best, because this is not sideways like the one in the front. Nothing's going to fall in that one, but this one it will. Alright, I did break that loose. It did come loose, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on getting that off of there, and then I'm going to protect that from stuff falling in there. I got that brake line off of there, and I did take an air hose and I blew all the loose dust off from around the top of that, so I should be okay to just let it sit like this. I'm going to see if I can fish this line out of here in one long piece. If I cannot, then I'm going to have to try to copy it down here. And I would rather just have it out where I can stand up on the workbench and copy it there. But if I cannot fish it out, then I have to do it the hard way. So I'm going to try to fish this whole line out of here lengthwise. I'm going to see if I can do that. Okay, looks like I'm going to be able to do that just by sliding it forward a couple feet up on that end, on the front end, and then back here I can get it. All I got to do is get it around this shock. And really, since I'm changing these shocks anyway, I could take that shock off if it gives me a problem, because I'm changing them anyway. They're just not here yet. The new ones are not here yet. Won't be here till tomorrow, so they say, Amazon. So getting this off of here, and we'll take it to over to the shop and copy it. Have to find the right size fitting, and I've got them here. The 1/4 inch, and got the 3/16 also, but I'll show how I match that up. That end's facing down on the ground. This end's easier to look at. I just match it up, make sure my threads blend in side by side there, and they do, and it's the right size, and it's a 1/4 inch, so everything's good there. Got the 1/4 inch die in there. I gotta slide this in there till we come out past the end just a little bit. Clamp this thing down. Not gonna clamp it tight, just snug it down just slightly. I start out at operation 0, and that's gonna set this. That's gonna set my distance at the right depth. I just barely snug this down a little bit. That's just gonna push it in flush. Okay, now I clamp this down tight. There goes my can of spray. Now I'm going to turn this to operation 1 for 1/4 inch. That's here. I'm going to go on ahead and push this in. Now let's turn this to operation 2 for 1/4 inch. It's this one here. Okay, we got that end flared. Now I got to bend this to copy the other line outside. I'm just going to use this pliers here and try to get this down here first. Gotta be careful not to kink it. It will kink. You don't have to get these turns as tight as the original. You can usually just get kind of close. I have a roll of cheap tape that's easy to tear. first kink we're going to follow is right here. The first turn we're going to follow is right here. Get a piece of tape off of here. Doesn't have to be perfect. The lines will bend. They're flexible. And the tape always folds over and sticks to itself. Gotta have that. Anyway, you got the idea, I hope. We're just going to do that all the way down the line. Is just keep following, and after every bend, we're going to put a piece of tape on it. Now I want to show just how close this was to blowing out on me. See that? And over here, I wasn't bending those around. And they're leaking, so that line was about to blow out. Any day it would have blown out. I'm at the point where I'm ready to cut this off at the end here. And first I got to double check all of my bends all the way down. Make sure they're reasonably close, and make sure I'm not going to be too short on this end. And I think we are looking good. Does not have to be perfect. The line's flexible, it'll move. But all those little bends in there, it'll stretch if it's short. But we're not going to be short. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I like to turn it both ways the first couple of turns, because sometimes these little tubing cutters will have if they're crooked, they'll have a tendency to start threading down the line instead of staying on that first cut. It'll act like it's cutting threads and start just screwing down the line. You don't want to turn that very tight. Just a little bit at a time, because you don't want to crush it. Then we got this reaming tool to clean this out in here. Comes with a T-handle in case you need it, but really don't. I really didn't need to ream that anyway, because I was pretty careful not to crush it. Okay, I took the tape off of the end of it here just so I can have a little freedom to work with it. And I'm going to leave the two taped together to just give it a little extra support until I get the thing over there where I'm putting it in. And I'm just going to put another end on this the same way I did the first one. I got this new line threaded back up in here, and I just want a quick reminder. Keep that end with the right angle, keep that facing down as much as possible so you don't scrape something and get dirt down in that inside that tube. And I'm going to screw that one down first because it's at an angle and it's going to be the hardest one to screw in. But I'm not going to tighten it down because I'm going to bleed it out there. So anyway, I'll snug it down a little bit, and then I'll tighten the front end, and then I'll loosen this up or leave it a little bit loose so that I can bleed it out there. Got that one on tight up in the front, got it wiped off clean, don't see any leaks. Of course there's no pressure on it. We're just going to gravity bleed this thing for a while. I mean, I'll push a little bit on the pedal to get it through, but the line looks like it followed pretty good. Followed all the curves and bends pretty good. I think I got away with it this time, did a pretty nice job. Got my wrench up there on the back, ready to bleed it up there. That's the best place to bleed it, and if I don't get all of it out there, then I'll have to go to the wheels and bleed the back wheels, but hopefully we can get it all right up there where that is. So I'm not going to do that on video so much, I don't think. I think we'll just call this the end of the video, I think.